Okay, welcome everyone and very good afternoon and thank you for attending this week's webinar. So this week's webinar, we have the topic on automation. Well, for those who are joining today, there's a lot of talk out there about automation and how to automate your processes in the market. And there's also grants that are also provided for your company and your organization to start automation by our government. But the question that comes into play is that whether it's going to be a disruption to your organization processes, or is it going to be a progression for your organization? So that's the topic and the question that we'll be tackling today. So for today's session, we have Lance Chiang, our founder of VLan Asia, to what we call this, talk to you guys about the topic. Before I start off, I would like to also remind everyone that if you have any questions that you'd like to ask during this session, just drop it in the Q&A section, which is located at the right-hand corner of the screen, and also follow us on our social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. Yep. So Lance, I'm going to pass this session over to you then.
Thank you. Can you hear me? All good?
All good, Lance.
Cool. Thank you for joining our little industry chit chat session. I have Mr. T here from a company called Gard Inc. Today as my guest. I know T through my Vistage forum, which I actually joined late last year. It's been a pretty good learning journey. We actually learn, in case some of you don't know what Vistage is about, it's actually a group about a bunch of CEOs and also business owners where you can actually go out there and bitch and moan about the problems that you're facing. So anyway, I sidetracked. Gard Inc. was actually founded in 2001, where I'm reading off their website, by the way, where they have grown with Mr. T's leadership at the helm to a company which is a reputable specialist in air ventilation commercial use. They offer innovative products for industry categories in their house brand Gard. So on paper, Gard Inc. actually does ventilators, industrial grade fans, and but if you ask me personally, I believe their core is they actually make life comfortable. Who likes staying in a very hot house, you see? So who likes eating in a hot environment, you see? So whether yours is for your home, for your office, for your warehouse, an eatery at a mall where you frequent, chances are that probably would be a Gard Inc. fan or ventilator or a hand dryer or an under-sink food disposal. Actually, my house also has one. So actually, my first impression about these guys was, are these guys really Malaysian? I didn't know Gard was actually a Malaysian brand. So and ourselves, VLan Asia, some of you would already know, we are a tech concierge service. What we do is we help companies do better with technology. We've been in town for 17 years now, and we are strong in cloud services, where we do integrations for our customers, for CRM systems, customer ticketing systems, like, for example, Zendesk, cloud accounting solutions for Xero, and also, of course, our bread and butter, which is Microsoft 365. So what is automation in simple words? I copied this from Wikipedia. It's actually the dictionary defines making an apparatus, a process, or a system. We define automation as the creation and application of technology to monitor and control the production and delivery of products and services. Very big words. So T, first questions for you. First question to you. What's your take on automation? What comes to mind when you talk about automation?
To me, I think automation is more about getting things organized, doing things at a faster speed, more efficiently, and I guess with today's overwhelming channels and because we are very much a sales and marketing and distribution company. So I think we do a lot of marketing. So therefore, marketing encompasses the social medias, the phone, emails, Googles, and things like that. So so I think it's just imperative that in today's world, without being able to connect all the dots, I think it is taking a very risky kind of route. So to me, that is getting organized, I think is actually a key word.
Yeah, organization. Curious, how in your line of work, what kind of things do you think you can actually automate for some of your customers?
Well, I think for a start, I think certainly customer service is one of them. I think in today's world, it's no longer like those days whereby the big eat the small, but in today's world, it's actually the fast eat the slow. So you can be huge, you can be big giant. It's actually the nimblers, such as the upstarts. Actually, those are the ones that actually I believe a lot of the giants are actually very afraid of new technology, new ways of doing things. So they can be just like a startup, but they can actually overwhelm or even take over a disrupted industry. So I think in that sense, I think what we want to do is actually to be able to connect with the customers in a very fast and efficient manner. And I think in today's world, everyone is just so impatient. 3 seconds, you log into Google, 3 seconds, you go on the website. If it's not showing things, I think probably the guy would have left you. So I think speed is the key element here.
Are you trying to say you're a small fry? Cannot be lah.
I think it's all again relative. I think we are probably the giant in our certain segment of industries. However, I think within the context of the entire ecosystem, then I think probably we are very small. And I think I always want to think small, but we act big. And I think that's important, because the moment you think that you're big, you get complacent. You think that you're the incumbent. You think that people owes you, or people knows about you. I always feel that if you don't know about me, I think that's fine to be expected. If they say that, oh yeah, I've heard about you guys before, then I say, okay, that's a compliment. And I would like to find out how they find out about us. So through word of mouth is always a very it is a mountain to climb, because how many people can you actually meet on a personal level? So I think that's where the automation comes in. That's where digitalization actually comes into play.
Okay, cool. So why do you think people are actually so reluctant to automate or to digitalize their businesses?
In my opinion, actually, because nothing happens even if you don't digitalize. I mean, on an immediate term, because life goes on, brick and mortar, your business is still there. So I think it's the inertia. I think it's also sometimes like you don't feel that it's a pressing need unless it's really destroying your business. Then you probably you want to look into it. But on that note, I think most people actually understand that actually digitalization or automation is the way to go. But at what point do you really make a commitment and a determination? I want to start now. And I think the other thing that actually holds people back from taking this route is because they don't know how to get started. So in other words, actually lack of knowledge about the industry, lack of knowledge of the solutions is holding back people from actually implementing or executing this journey.
So actually, from in my view, right, I actually encounter quite a lot of people who actually ask me, hey, workplace, my job will be affected or not once you automate this. My skills and expertise still needed or not, and will I be able to meet the demands of the digital world? Because I also know of some companies, the moment they start selling online, boom, their business grows so big that they can't cope, and then they burn out from the stress. So, it's true what you say. A lot of people are very worried about uncertainty, I guess, because there's this thing called FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's a very big that's a very big hindrance to digitalization or automation, in my sense. Also, I suppose manpower is cheap. In Malaysia, you don't really need to spend 50, 100,000, 150,000 just for just to automate something that I can probably hire a foreign worker, foreign labor to actually get it done for much cheaper over a longer period of time. But of course, the trade-off is you lose the efficiencies because you're still relying on one person to actually get something done. So I understand that you are also looking to digitalize some parts of your business. Can you? You're actually thinking about digitalizing or automating some of your business, some parts of your business.
Yeah, I think the I think the appreciation for digitalization actually has been enhanced, particularly during the period of MCO and the COVID. It kind of like makes you sit back and start looking at the subject matters that you've been always constantly talking about it, doing, wanting to do about it. So I guess this is what you call the moment of truth, is when you take a plunge into it. But obviously, the first question that if you remember that I asked you, actually, can my people handle the kind of technology, the kind of setup, and also the kind of work required? So you were quite confident in saying that anybody can do it. I say, okay. But having said that, it's always, I'm quite a, as I said, maybe a bit conservative, maybe prudent person. In the sense that I think I look at technology not for the sake of technologies. I think I look at solutions, and pretty much it's also in our DNA. We have, like you have introduced a company, what we do. We have got big fans, HVLS fans. We have ventilators. We have got hand dryers. We have got a few other things that we do. But I think I always tell my team to always approach your customers or your prospect with the solution in mind. I mean, not to sell a product. I think that's, people don't buy products; they actually buy a solution to a problem that they have. So I think to a similar extent or token, that the technology is actually, there's plentiful of technology, I believe. Although I am, almost illiterate in terms of what's happening in the world of technology, but again, as I said, if we adopt technology for the sake of the technologies itself, then I think we probably missed the point. So what we are trying to do right now is actually to take baby steps, one step at a time. But if I can run, if I'm really walking, I can run, then I want to actually adopt it as fast as possible, because it's always been, but now the appreciation of digitalization really hits home. And time is money and time is opportunity. Right. So I'm looking at the number one. I think what we want to do is actually two core areas. Number one is actually a CRM program. Number two is actually a service support program, which helps us to automate our service support to our customers. So in other words, actually to know exactly what happens when somebody calls in, and to be able to retrieve the communication or the the discussions help. So we do not really have to depend on that particular person to respond to a particular service response call. So I think that's where I feel that it is actually the biggest impact it will have onto us, not on an immediate basis, but on a mid-term to long-term is definitely, I would consider it to be actually instrumental or crucial, in order for us to sustain or to stay relevant or even grow for the matter.
Speaking about relevance, since you're in manufacturing and distribution, how do you think your industry will look like in the next 5 years or 3 years maybe?
I think for some of the products, I think it's quite predictable because they are quite mature. For others, it's evolving. I think I look at long-term plan as like 1 year. I think it's like almost like eternity. I think I look at the broader market. There will be changes, no question about it. Changes are driven by technology improvements, not necessarily change of technologies, but improvements in technologies. Changes are also dictated by cost, maybe a better product at a lower cost, so that effectively can either create a new subcategory of an industry, or even probably to disrupt a certain industry for that matter. So so I think in today's world, I think things are changing so quickly, and to the extent that the technologies wise, I believe you sell on technology. I mean, as a technological or as a advanced organization, I think we probably would miss the point, because even if our competitors are behind us today, I mean, you can mark your word that my word that by tomorrow, the next month, they probably copied you again. So it's a constant evolution, constant changes. So again, as I mentioned, actually, the victor is actually not the biggest. The victor will be actually the person who moves the fastest. So so there will be tremendous changes in front of us.
Sounds like you're in for the long game, man.
Well, as long as I can.
So yeah. There's also this saying that automation, digitalization, all this, it has to do with innovation, right? But it doesn't mean that innovation actually makes things more efficient. Innovation and efficiency don't really go hand in hand. Like, innovation is quite cumbersome. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. You actually have to trial and error. You actually need to figure things out. You need to figure out what are the processes that you need to improve, what are the processes you want to automate. And usually people don't realize that it's actually a process. Even the process of getting automation in place is also a process. So automation isn't exactly something that happens overnight. Digitalization, automation doesn't happen overnight. Innovative stuff doesn't happen overnight. Take for example the projector screen wall. Everybody has this projector screen wall. Last time, you just have to use a manual string. It works all the time. You just pull a string, the screen comes down. Put the other way, the screen goes back up. So what do these innovators do? Some innovators actually just install a button that extends the screen, and then it press the button, it retracts the screen. Then now suddenly the screen is permanently down because the button doesn't work anymore. So innovation for the sake of automating something doesn't mean it resolves any real world problems. So tell me something. Some of the products, let's say your ventilators. What kind of real world problems that you actually solve for your customers?
I think in terms of ventilation, obviously it is very basic. It's a very important element in our life, because we're talking about creating fresh air, for indoors. The basic needs of ventilation is there. But what actually evolved is actually the manner it is being manifested. Right now, we actually have like a two-way ventilator, energy recovery ventilation. These are enhanced features to a very basic solution, which is clean air or fresh air. Again, I think when every market actually has got its product life stage. And the initial stages when we first promoted our ventilators was way back in 2006. I mean, literally, we created a category because at the time when we first introduced ventilators, they were only exhaust fans. And so it was a challenge in the initial stages that people even don't know what is the purpose of a ventilation. But so therefore, I think at that point in time, if at all, if we had those energy recovery ventilators and fresh air systems, I think the adoption or the application of such product may be ahead of its time. So it may not even work at that point in time. So I think, like all things, it takes time for us to gradually embrace and gradually to accept. It's an education journey for sure, and also an awareness. I think obviously I would say that actually the education is a very, very expensive and a very tedious and long-term exercise. It takes time. So sometimes frankly, I do not even want to attempt to do that on a very conscious level, because you find that, I mean, as a profit organization, I think the resources are always kind of constrained. So,
okay.
So I think the technology-wise, I think on the on the forefront of ventilation is a gradual thing.
So what's this thing about energy recovery? Maybe you can explain a little. What does energy recovery mean?
Energy recovery simply means that you can actually ventilate your space, leveraging onto and inputting fresh air into an indoor, minimizing the loss of energy. So, i.e., so in other words, if it's a plain ventilation system, you find that you lose a lot of so-called energy in terms of your cool air, because in Malaysia, the fact that we all use air conditioners. So when air is extracted out from your indoor, you must have in order to actually recover or minimize the loss of your cool air being replaced by warm air from outside. So the energy recovery actually reduces or recovers part of the cool air that's being extracted from the indoor to out, up to a level of 70%. So it means actually basically your aircon do not have to work as hard as it would have to if without the energy recovery. So that's of energy recovery.
Oh, okay, save money lah. That's a real problem, man.
I think environmentally friendly. You want to be green. So that's part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I've also seen some IoT device, Internet of Things devices starting to be embedded into household goods. Things like, for example, things like maybe your refrigerator. So the moment, let's say, the refrigerator is running low on gas, or maybe air conditioning is running low on gas, the IoT will actually notify you saying that, hey, your gas on air conditioning is actually running low. Please top up, otherwise tonight you won't be able to sleep very well. Is this something that you guys are actually looking actively to see whether or not you can actually automate some of perhaps the service requests coming to your company? Because I believe you guys do services as well. And let's face it, we don't service our household equipment as often as we should. Is this something that you guys are looking at as well?
I think if I use a comparison and an analogy, I think the IoT has been around the past probably like less than 10 years, but probably within the last couple of years. I would say if I use the IoT, is it relevant? Is it practical in Malaysia? It is a niche product at this point in time. Probably the adopters will be the early adopters who are techies, people who like new gadgets. If I would liken IoT technology is almost like what electric cars was maybe 10 years ago, whereby it's still very much concept. It will eventually everything will be IoT. I believe most things will be IoT simply because of technology. Simply the cost of integration is actually very inexpensive when it gets there. So, but at this point in time, for practical reasons, no. I think for exposure reasons, yes, probably it's nice to actually have some gadgets, with IoT.
May not be a problem that people need solving at this point in time, I suppose.
Yeah, I just open up my fridge. I know what's in there.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, actually. I suppose there's a lot of things that can be done, but whether or not it needs to be done or not, usually you need to do a sanity check first. Are you doing it for the sake of doing it, or are you really solving a real problem? For example, there's one company that I read of the other day, right? It's called Aerodyne. They're actually a local drone company. So what they did was they actually removed the needs for contractors to risk their lives by climbing up the high tension wires, the power lines, by just flying up a drone to actually inspect the pylons. So maybe maybe this is something that you can also consider. For example, some of your huge ass fans that is stuck very high up in the ceiling, right? Maybe you can actually fly a drone up there to actually inspect for any defects or faults when the fan doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We have discussed about those situations. So now we need to train some pilots, I think.
You can just outsource this job to Aerodyne. I think they do outsource work as well.
Give me the contact, then I think we You talk to them and see how they can actually help us in some of these tricky site situations. Yeah.
Some parts of their business, I suppose. For example, things like having somebody answer the phone last time as a receptionist wasn't exactly very efficient. So these days, people come up with answering machines, IVRs to simulate a receptionist. So I mean, these days, how many people actually employ a receptionist anyway? So that's automation done right. You save money and you actually get something done. But also, of course, having said that, some companies deliberately make it harder for you to speak to a person, like banks, you spoke to credit card departments before, right? Crazy. Man. So another thing just now you mentioned was customer support. It's also true because there's actually a study done that people actually say 75% of people actually say they prefer self-service. They actually prefer to do things on their own. So if let's say your customer support actually has self-service options where they can actually put in some of their inquiries or put in some of the questions that they have, and they get answers automatically without you having to assign somebody to talk to them, that probably could be something that you can also automate already. So it also builds trust to your brand, I suppose, because the perception is somebody is actually responding to somebody's query. So I suppose there's quite a number of the challenges that a lot of companies face are actually quite generic across the board. If you ask me, a lot of people I realize have very fixed mindsets. They think that they can only do this way. They don't realize that there are other ways of doing things, or they are just very risk adverse, or they think too much inwardly. They think what they want to do rather than what the customer actually needs, and whether or not what this process is actually doing, whether or not it actually makes sense to automate it, or whether or not you actually can actually benefit from it. So if you're looking at automation, right? Why now? Why are you looking at automation now?
If not now, when? That's my question. I think that things happen at the right time. Sometimes I consider this is just happened. I mean, it happens for a reason. It happened at the right time. I don't look back and say, no, why didn't I do it a year ago, 2 years ago? Well, it didn't happen. Again, as I said, even if you don't take the action today, I'm pretty sure actually nothing drastic will happen over the next 1 year. Drastic as in negative, things will still operating. But in totality, I think we are looking towards the future. I think what you want to do is actually looking towards the future. What's going to happen if you don't do now? What's going to happen in 1 year time, 2 years time? Basing on your current practice of manner of doing things, it's not going to be competitive as an organization.
Yeah, actually, it's true. A lot of traditional businesses are being disrupted. Like, for example, the music industry was disrupted by technology. Apple, Spotify. These guys don't make music, but they disrupted the whole music industry. And artists these days, they don't launch albums anymore. They launch singles. They don't sell you a whole album of 20 songs. They sell you just one song. So that makes things a lot more efficient, a lot more cheaper, and a lot more easier for them to actually get more publicity, especially now online, right? And then, for example, the hotel industry is also disrupted by technology again. Airbnb, Agoda, you literally can book a hotel without going through a travel agent. Then you got your taxi services disrupted by Grab, and soon they'll be coming after our wallets as well, literally, with e-wallets. So we don't even need wallets anymore. So these are all very traditional business. So do you see yourself, your business, your distribution business as a traditional business that is ripe to be disrupted?
I think honestly, if it's going to be disruption, I think probably we'll be the disruptor. Because we do a B2B, B2C. I think the B2C means we literally go direct. That can happen, but I think the relevancy of intermediary is still necessary for some products. So I think the key thing is actually coexisting with existing channels, and to make sure that we have got the winning formula, make sure that it's actually a sustainable formula for all parties involved in the distribution role. So that's what I mean. Everyone's talking about omni-channel. I think that's something that I strongly believe. Omni-channel is the current model, and it will be the future model until one day.
So what's your winning formula?
My winning formula? Well, give good products, good service, at good value price. I think customers will remember you. They'll come back. I think definitely, I think the word of mouth is still very powerful marketing so-called source. So way beyond even all kinds of advertisements and things like that.
HubSpot, in HubSpot CRM, the product, they actually have a training, and they actually share something called the customer flywheel, the flywheel process. You know, customers, people always think of it as a funnel, right? Top is all your leads, middle is all the prospects, and the bottom is the smallest funnel is actually your converted sales, right? But HubSpot actually shares that they've got this flywheel theory where the faster the flywheel spin, where you've got happy customers, you've got good support, you've got good services, the faster the more customers come on board, the happier the customers are, the faster the flywheel spins, the more business you get. So that's a very good analogy, I suppose. So that's we're running short on time. So maybe you can share one painful thing that you see repeating in your company that you think you want to automate.
I think it's managing of so-called customer service complaints, whereby I think the last thing that you want is actually one unhappy customers, because he or she can actually probably magnify the issue to maybe a multiple of 10, 20. Happy customers will probably refer 2 customers to you, but the unhappy customer will probably multiply to 20 other persons or 100 other persons. So I think that is one thing that I think that we need to identify those pain points, which is the unhappy customers. But actually, on that note, I always feel that it's always an opportunity when you have someone complaining to you, because they're trying to highlight, they're trying to shout out for attention. I think if you can resolve those customers so-called satisfactory, and if they're happy with it, in fact, they can be your biggest so-called ambassador or your ally. So it is an opportunity, in other words.
Yeah. So innovation, automation is all hogwash as long as you don't have bad customer service.
Yes.
Customer service is still going to be key in any business, regardless whether or not you're automated or not, I suppose. Yeah, actually that's true. That's true. Okay, some good news. Because the government is actually quite aware that if SMEs don't digitalize, they really can't survive in today's climate. So some of the grants that they offer is quite attractive. Are you involved in any of them?
Yeah, we are applying. So I'm still waiting for some response and reply from them. So hopefully we get some. So then we can actually spend more money.
You're applying for the MDEC grant, right? I presume.
Right. Cool. MDEC SAG.
Cool. Final thoughts. What do you think we should be thinking about if you're automating our companies? If any of our listeners are thinking about automating or digitalizing some of the processes in their companies?
I made a comparison. Whether to digitalize or not is almost like 20 years ago. Whether to computerize or not computerize. So that's the direction digitalization will take us. Yeah.
Cool. Running out of time. So I think we will open the floor to some questions. Norman, you still on any questions?
Yeah, guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the Q&A section that is on the right-hand side of the screen. One question I'd like to ask is that when you start automating and your processes, does that save you manpower or time? Or how does that work?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah. I think the naturally automation which relieves a lot of the some of the support areas, particularly when it's actually you look at it, and most businesses or most complaints or services required actually are of the typical run of the mill. Probably like, can this do this? What do I need to do when, so these are questions which is actually can be handled by, an automation. So if we relieve, although it's often it does not take a lot of time, I think the automation actually relieves or at least allows the people involved to stay focused onto their core or onto their main task. Without making too much disruption. It's a disruption that's actually costly. It's not really the physical part of actually attending to these services. So yes, absolutely. I think you would have to say cost because you are actually creating more opportunities.
Yeah. I also believe that it does reduce costs in a sense where you really don't have to do mundane tasks repeatedly. For example, a lot of times. The fun fact, the most visited page in every single website where you actually log into, right? The most visited page is actually the self reset password page in the website. So if you literally have somebody having to reset somebody's password on a daily basis, that's a huge waste of time. So we strongly believe in self-serve automation. So we allow our customers to actually reset their passwords automatically themselves. So it absolves us from actually having to physically go and reset somebody's password. It's something as simple as that. So yes, it does reduce costs. It does probably will cause some people to lose their jobs, but I won't call that job loss. I call it repurposing of resources. You actually can retrain yourself to do something a bit more meaningful with your time and also your expertise. Yeah.
Right. There's another question. Before we take that question, I'd like to just follow up with another question. There are two chains of thoughts, right, in automation. One is that if it's coming from the management perspective, they would say that, well, it's going to save me money. But if it's coming from an employee's perspective, am I going to lose my job? So what's the thought in this process? What do you guys think? Anything you want to share about it?
I think again, it's about repurposing and retraining, reskilling yourself. If you've been doing something for the past 1 year routinely, if you ask me, something routine could be and should be automated, so you can actually do something a bit more meaningful, something that uses your brain a bit more. Use your cognitive abilities a bit more than something that is mundanely repetitive.
Right. What about T? What do you think about that?
I think it's always has got to do with change. I think people always fear change. Whether it's automation or whatever. They always fear that they're going to lose their job. Somebody's taking over their role. So,
yeah, exactly.
So I think it's incumbent upon the management to clarify the purpose and the reasons why this is being done, and again, giving them the direction of what they can actually, how they can improve. So this can be an opportunity for the organization to keep people, giving them a purpose in the things that we do, with a higher goals, for the overall of the company. So it's about change, yeah.
Yep, it's all about change, and how we embrace it, right? There's a question that came in. What if after my business digitalized and it still does not solve my business pains? What then?
This one I think. So digitalization is not about technology, if you ask me. Automation is not about technology. Sometimes some automation might not even need technology. It could be just a simple process change. So identifying what is your actual problem first, rather than finding a technology to suit. Rather than implementing a technology before you find out what the problem is. So instead of putting the cart in front of the horse, you need the horse to run first, right? So So technologies are supposed to complement. They're supposed to help with the problem. Technology is going to be able to help you.
Yeah, right. Okay, the next question is what is the main points to consider if a business is considering automation? What are the main points or concerns that they need to consider? Any tips on that?
Lance, you are the right person to speak to.
It's all about finding out what the problem is. So what we do is what we actively do is we actually engage with our customers even before we sign them as customers. We actually engage with our customers to actually understand what is the real problem first. And sometimes it takes day-long workshops to actually understand what the problem is. Then after you realize what the problem is, you also need to know what is the solution and who is actually in charge of this problem that you're trying to solve, and what's the timeline, what's the priorities. All this is very important before you actually implement a solution. So if you're looking for a digitalization solution, find out what your problem is first. Identify what are the areas that you actually need to address. Find who is in charge of it. Find a timeline when you want this to be implemented, and have some metrics of measure to know whether or not what you've implemented actually worked or not. Notice I didn't say anything about technology. I didn't say anything about any solution. This is all about your own business first. If you don't know what you want in your business, you don't know what you're trying to achieve in your business, don't go down the digitalization road.
Right. T, what about you? In all honesty, before you even started looking at automation, what was your biggest concern when it came to automation or digitalization?
I think it's again about the what we don't know. I think that's my biggest issue, because I mean it is a journey. Earlier you were saying that what happened if it doesn't work. Like all things, not everything will work to plan. So sometimes I think along the way we need to adjust. We need to identify. We need to make some some changes to the things that we have incorporated. But ideally, we always have to start with the big picture. I think if the direction is correct, then I think along the way there are certain things that you need to tweak in order to make it work for your own situation. So in other words, I think let's not be worried about failures. I think failures is part of success. If you don't fail, you say stay status quo, you will never fail. But you're gonna fail. I mean, big time. So I think it's a mindset again. To me, I think it's a mindset. So how you want to do it? You don't do anything. I think you're very safe. So and that is the most risky kind of a decision to take.
Not doing anything is not safe, yeah. Especially at this point in time. Imagine if you're brick and mortar now. During the MCO 3 months, you got no business. So you'll be in trouble if you don't have online or digital sources.
Even after the 3 months, things are not going to get better.
Yeah.
Because the encroachment of this online is definitely real.
Yep.
Right. Let's take the next question. The next question is, what are the areas that knowledge service industries, for example, consulting industries, should focus on when it comes to automation that differs from product service industries, for example, air conditioning? Any tips on that?
For consulting, I suppose, and if you ask me, a lot of businesses face the same fundamental problems: finding new business, finding new customers, getting new leads, maintaining your existing customer base, managing your own finances, managing your own staff. Something as simple as applying for leave. If you're still using a piece of paper to apply for leave, I think 10 years behind. If you still need to apply, if you still need to submit your claims using a handwritten form, sticking your receipts on an A4 paper every month you have to submit, I think you're 5 or 10 years behind again. So if you ask me, any business probably goes through and also has this same problems. So I think for a start, maybe your back office processes can be a good start to look into. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're in product, you're same problems. You will still need to face your customers. You still need to find new customers. You still need to manage your books.
And the big question they're asking is automation expensive?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, I guess. You're trying to automate. If you're literally going to buy a robot arm to actually move something to point A to point B, then maybe it might be too expensive lah. But if you're doing something as simple as, again, like I said, applying leave, and the notification actually goes, and the leave actually goes into the calendar where everybody knows that you are on leave, that's already an automation, and some of these are available for free. So it's relative to what you're trying to achieve, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Okay, the next question is, what if my problems are my staff? I tried a few automation initiatives, but it failed to take off. What can I do?
I think you need to change the manager. I mean, all systems are good until you actually know how to use it and you enforce it, right? Just like our laws, in the country, good laws, poor enforcements. So that's not going to work well.
Yeah, so if you ask me, it also comes back down to what's the problem, what's the actual problem. Sometimes if, let's say, you implement technology, your staff are still lazy, staff is still a human problem. No amount of technology is going to resolve that. So it could be a people problem, it could be your problem.
True. Okay, yeah, that was the
that's the real concern, actually. I think that's the real challenge. Even on a personal level, I think that's a challenge that I want to overcome. I've been kind of like challenged by some of my team members saying, I think it's not going to work. I say, okay, if I want to make it work, then I have to make it work, right? And nothing worthwhile actually is easy. I think that's life. I think in general. So you want something good to happen and you don't want to work for it, then it's not going to happen. So I mean not the fact that I have not reached there yet, so I don't know. I mean, come interview me 2 years later, then then I'll tell you whether I've done it or not. Maybe I say, yeah, actually it's not so easy. So but okay.
Change is painful and change is difficult, and
yes,
people are very change adverse. So yes, it's all about people, if you ask me.
Right, exactly. It's execution. I think it's like all things actually is execution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like when you want to buy a property as well, right? You look at it right now and you're like, wow, like 5-6 years ago, you look at a property and you go like, wow, 500,000 for a 3-story house, so expensive. And then now you look back and you're like, I should have got that property, right? So I guess in anything, you got to just dive in it and take that risk and see how it goes, right? Down the road, you will say, thank God I took that decision.
Fingers crossed then.
Right, any last words from you guys? T?
I think the decision has been made. I think the journey has got to be traveled. I think we have to go through it. Of course, we need the support from our partners, VLan. So I think that's what we all believe. I think the risk is always there, one way or the other. So, but we just have to measure what is the greater risk.
So my final, if you know what you are doing and you know what you are finding out what you actually really want to achieve, whether or not automation is the answer, whether or not new technology is the answer, that really depends. But it's all about what you're trying to achieve, what problems are you trying to solve, then you match it with a technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. T, for joining us for today's session, and Lance, thank you for all the advice and answering all the questions in there. For the rest of you, if you would like to continue joining us for the next webinar, it's going to be on Tuesday. We have Chi Seng, who is a very good influencer and an online copywriter that does a lot of webinars on motivational and also how to help you influence your customers' decisions. So next week's webinar that we're going to be presenting on Tuesday, 2 p.m. is about how to influence anyone with the right with the right what do you call this?
Words.
Words. Yeah, that's right. So if you have time, join us at 2 p.m. Register. It's open. We've sent out the emails for registration as well. So we'd like to see you down there. And yeah, join Chi Sing as he presents to you the topic right at hand. And yeah, for feedbacks, we'd like you guys to just scan this QR code and send us your feedbacks on the webinar. And if you have any questions, inquiry on our products and services, you can drop us an email at sales@VLan.asia or WhatsApp us at the number on the screen, or just give us a call and we're happy to help you with your automation processes. If you need help with a grant, we can also help you with that because we are the TSP for MDEC. So we can also help you for a grant for automation as well, which they are actually what do you call this thing, promoting right now. The government is promoting right now. So yeah, please do so. And we'll see you on the next webinar on Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.